questions on how renewables can contribute to a green and sustainable COVID-19 recovery, and how renewables can contribute to local economic development in Uganda. And we have an excellent panel today. So first of all, I would like to invite Honorable Biika Lawrence Zonga to the stage. He's a member of the parliament in Uganda and chairperson of the Climate Change Committee and member of the Global Renewables Congress. So welcome. Here's some water if you want. Next up, I would like to invite Caroline Aguti to the stage. She's Principal Environment Officer at the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development in Uganda. Welcome to you as well. And then two colleagues of mine, one being Vian Musica, Renewable Energy Manager at the Ecological Christian Society Organization in Uganda, ECHO. So welcome, Vian. And Ibrahim Mutebi, Renewable Energy Manager at WWF Uganda. Welcome. So this event today came together from a joint project from WWF Uganda, ECHO, and others, which you can see here on the slide. And the project, the 100 Remap project, short for 100% renewable energy for multi-actor partnerships, aims to develop science-based roadmaps to achieve 100% renewable energy in a couple of countries, amongst them Uganda, and the other two being Nepal and Vietnam, taking into account local capacities, but also renewable energy potentials, current energy mix, and socio-economic indicators which need to be achieved in the country. So any development targets, NDCs, etc. And by discussing barriers and solutions with key stakeholders from all sectors, the project aims to broaden the ownership of the energy transition in Uganda. So this 100 Remap project started just last year, corresponding with the pandemic. And our partners in the meantime have set up a multi-actor partnership in the country and will soon actually start with policy dialogues to really try to discuss a 100% renewable pathway for the country. But that's enough for me, I think, and I'll let actually the others speak for once. And I would actually like to ask Ibrahim the first question. So, do you have a microphone? Okay, thanks. So today we are meeting here in Glasgow to prevent the climate crisis from worsening. And Ibrahim, what is at stake for Uganda if you do not limit global warming to 1.5 degrees as stipulated in the Paris Agreement and really drastically increase renewables?
Thank you very much, Anna. These are two questions in one. One of them is talking about the impacts of climate change in Uganda, and the other is talking about how do we increase deployment of renewable energy in the country. I might say that we are in a bizarre situation as a country in Uganda because we don't contribute a lot to the greenhouse gas emissions which are contributing to climate change. Statistics show that Uganda is contributing only 0.01% of the global emissions that are impacting climate change in the world. But we recognize as WWF that we need to collectively tackle the climate change issue because it's a global challenge that different stakeholders have to join hands to be able to tackle. And we believe that a transition to 100% renewable energy is the way to go, and it can help us to address society issues, but at the same time try to see how we can develop our economies. So for the case of Uganda, the fact that we are a least developed country, we are facing so many impacts of climate change. And different studies have shown that the temperatures are increasing in Uganda. Records from the IPCC, the World Bank, USAID, and other organizations show that we are, in the last 100 years, we've seen a 1.5 degree centigrade increase in the temperatures in Uganda. And this is impacting a lot of the people in the country. But also we are seeing a decline in the rainfall patterns. We are seeing a 3.5% decrease in the rainfall patterns over the last years. And this is affecting a number of ecosystems and people in the country. To give context, annually we have around thousands of people who die due to floods, droughts, and landslides in Uganda. And this is critical because a number of these communities are vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. They lack the resources to build resilience, and this is why it's important, as we are here at COP26, that the commitment that has been done by the different developed nations to tackle the issue of climate change is actually met, because developing countries like Uganda actually are the front foot of these impacts that are impacting on nature and people. On the energy side, most of our electricity comes from hydropower. So we have about 2% of our energy coming from hydropower, and then we have 88% of our energy coming from biomass and 10% coming from fossil fuels. So climate change has a key impact on the way how our electricity generation is going to be in the next years. So we need to see how do we climate-proof a lot of our energy investments, because without climate-proofing our energy investments, it's going to be a difficult situation for the population of Uganda. But also, if you talk about biomass, it's a disaster because the potential for biomass is huge as a renewable energy potential, but a lot of the biomass in the country is used unsustainably. So you find that we are harnessing hydropower, biomass, using inefficient technologies. For example, 100 kilograms of wood can only give us 10 kilograms of biomass that people use in their households. So these are key challenges which also contribute to indoor air pollution, because a number of women and children actually exposed to this air pollution. And Uganda currently loses 20,000 people annually because of indoor air pollution, which is far greater than the deaths that come from malaria, TB, AIDS. And this is really appalling, because we need to stop having these statistics being added each year to the number of people who die in the country. We are also keen to see that more investments and research actually happen in the country, because Uganda has a lot of potential for renewable energy. But this potential can only be harnessed if we have a lot of technical support as well as financing. So we call upon the developed countries to support us in this cause, because without that expertise, it's going to be difficult for us to actually harness the potential. And this also comes at a point where Uganda is starting to develop its oil and gas resources. So we have commitment as a country to actually turn to renewable energy, but the different resources that we have in the country have to be used to create the energy mix. And the shift to the 100% renewable energy would only be possible or feasible if that support comes in, so that we're able to bend the curve to the 1.5 degrees centigrade trajectory. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. And I think you pointed it out quite nicely that we do need to really tackle climate change, and at the same time we really need to start transitioning justly towards renewable energy. You mentioned the issue of biomass, and I couldn't agree more that we need to find alternative solutions. For the next question, I would actually like two people to reply. The next question is addressed to Mr. Robert Bakika, who will shortly come in, a colleague of Caroline's. And Caroline, do you want to then complement what your colleague Robert Bakika has been saying? Is that fine with you? Okay. No? Okay. So, COP style, we have some technical issues, and he just dropped out of the call, unfortunately. So the question just goes to you. So energy is one of the key sectors highlighted in Uganda's updated NDC and long-term strategy. So what are the energy sector priorities, and how are they aligned to the 1.5 degree pathway?
Thank you. In terms of our priorities, in terms of renewable energy, our focus is really on improving the electricity access. So we hope that by 2025, we should be at 60%. Our current access rate is about 57%, with 19% of the access rate being from grid and 32% from the off-grid. But this is mainly the solar. But also in terms of improving the generation capacity, We expect that we should be able to increase our generation capacity to 3,500 megawatts by 2025. Our current generation capacity is about 1,268. We also expect that we should be able to enhance our grid reliability to about 90%. We expect that we should be able to improve accessibility to affordable, reliable, but also we should be able to reduce the tariff, but also we should be focusing on expansion of standalone solar home power plants and the systems. But we also expect that we are focusing on geothermal and then investments in mini grids and connection of the mini grids to the distribution network. So really our focus is also on promotion of alternatives to cooking, and we are focusing on looking at electric cooking by investment in clean cooking technologies that are affordable, and also focusing on waste to energy, using the waste that we generate from our various activities to generate power. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have heard how renewables and the Uganda's NDC and climate action are linked. And as actually, Honorable Biaka Sanga, you were leadingly involved in legislating the recently launched National Climate Change Act of 2021. How does that contribute to climate action? What role do renewables play? And just to make it more complicated, how is it interlinked with COVID recovery measures?
Thank you very much. First of all, I wanted to say the economy of Uganda is climate change dependent. It is a natural resource-based economy, and actually is heavily relying on agro-based sector. Although we have some mineral sector which can be developed. And Uganda has prioritized energy access, transport sector, and industrialization. These are very key. And these are the factors, if not well addressed, can affect the economy of the country. Now, in the energy sector, we are more on electricity, especially the hydro, and then some solar. The wind is not yet well developed. But also when you look at the entire NDCs of the world, you will see that 90% is talking about adaptation. And of the 90% adaptation, renewable energy is also about 90%. So Uganda has also moved along that path. Now, along that line, we didn't have a law in place. That's why we struggle to put the climate change law in place so that this law will help us in the implementation of the climate change policy. And you know, there are three major challenges right now the world is facing. One is the biodiversity loss, climate change, and COVID pandemic. Now, all economies were affected during this COVID pandemic, and many are declining. So we need a recovery program so that we can bring back the health to the economy. But you know, after every pandemic or catastrophe, the immediate resources people look at are actually natural resources. They want to cut trees and sell so that they can recover, because as they wait for maybe investment in agriculture and so on. So now, as a country, we want to focus to see that we address those key factors. We have reflected them in our National Development Plan, but also the revised NDC for Uganda. So we want to see that these factors are given priority. Now, the law actually helps to mainstream climate change in all sectors of the economy, so that we can, as we promise in the NDC, that we are going to reduce greenhouse gases by 22%. Of course, globally, you know, we want to reduce greenhouse gases by 45%. But to Uganda, we have committed to 22%, but it has to be addressed in all sectors of the economy. And not only the issues under the UNFCCC, but also we have to look at other treaties, convention, and the protocols, like the Montreal Protocol. Also, we have a lot of greenhouse gases being generated under especially the substances that deplete the ozone layer. All that is captured in the law. As a committee, we want to see that what are the greenhouse gases generated by Uganda, what are the sources, how can we help to address them? That is number one. Number two, we also want to see that coordination, these scattered efforts, where climate change issues are being addressed by civil society, government, academia, and also the private sector. There should be a coordination, because when we are reporting as a country, we have to report in totality whatever the efforts we have put in place as to our target of 22% reduction in greenhouse gases. So the issue of coordination is very important, but also we wanted this to be all involving. That's why in the law we have provided for the Climate Change Advisory Committee, which will be outside government. People from civil society, government, and academia will now become members of that committee. They will advise the Minister for Water and Environment, and the Minister for Water and Environment will take some of the good points to the Policy Committee on Environment, shared by the Prime Minister. In that way, we feel that we shall capture the views of all stakeholders to see that we address in a holistic way the climate change issues affecting the country. But also in the law, we have provided for the emission trading system. Especially, we want to see that there is measurement, verification, and also reporting of these greenhouse gases. But we don't have the technology yet. That's why we are calling for even experts to come, so that when they are accredited in Uganda, they will be able to help in this measurement, verification, and also reporting of the greenhouse gases, so that we can see that much as we are the least emitting country, 0.01% of the greenhouse gases, but we are suffering the effect of climate change. So we want to see, if we want to trade in this, what do we do? On top of that, Uganda is right now on fossil fuel, because we have just discovered our petroleum, estimated to be 6.5 billion barrels. And if we get it all, we would get something like $416 billion. But what we have in Uganda, because of gas and so on, we can have only 1.4 recoverable, 1.4 billion barrels recoverable. If we sell that at today's price, we would get something like $89.5 billion. That money would help in the recovery. But now the global community is saying we have to leave that petroleum underground. So this is one dilemma we need to address together. So where do we go from here? Our position is we want to go for net zero. We cannot say we are going to do totally energy transition. Even our energy sector, we want to keep it as under the energy mix. So we shall have some solar, some hydro, some other sector, other energy sources. But now this net zero issue is that we want the amount of greenhouse gases being generated by our activities, even in the petroleum sector, should go all to the sink. So we need more sink. We need more forests, wetlands that can absorb the amount of greenhouse gases, 100%. That is the net zero target we want, so that we can balance between the environment, the profit, what the people will call the profit, the prosperity, the planet. We need to balance this in a cost-benefit analysis. And we shall do all this in the local context of Uganda. As you remember, we have the UNFCCC, which is talking about the common but differentiated responsibility. So whatever we capture here, whatever the pathway for the global community, we shall do it in the local context of Uganda. It will require a lot of cooperation. So for that, we need technology, we need resources, we need funds. From the Green Climate Fund, we only got $24 million. Very small compared to Ethiopia, which has got about $800 million. The procedure, the bureaucracy is too complicated for most informal sectors in Uganda. We need funds that can help us to work even with the rural community, even if they want to do tree planting. But that procedure, the long procedure of the Green Climate Fund, we really need to shorten it, or we should have other funds that can help us. Even the $24 million went, and it was managed by the UNDP. So because at that time the argument was we didn't have designated authority. Now we have designated authority. We hope this can be addressed. And our question, actually the whole delegation, one key question we are putting here is, where is the $100 billion which was promised if we only got $24 million? That is a key question. But otherwise, we feel that with capacity building, technology transfer, and also these issues of cooperation, coordination, we shall be able to, and we'll have the law in place, we should be able to address our climate change issues, implement the climate change policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lawrence. You already mentioned quite a lot of issues and what kind of support Uganda would need to actually achieve its NDC, scale up renewables, and do its part to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees. Caroline, you have been involved in the NDC partnership and the NDC process. Do you have anything to add?
I think really majorly we are looking at resources, like the Honorable here has said. We expect that we should be able to get resources that should be enable us to be able to achieve investment in the mini grids, because Uganda as a country has about 600 mini grid sites that have been identified. But where are the resources for us to be able to ensure that we actually develop those mini grids? If we are working with a draft economic-wide emission reduction strategy of 24.2%, we certainly need to ensure that we actually have the resources to be able to invest in that. We also expect that these resources should be able to come in to help us to improve on the distribution network, which requires a funding of about 900 billion Uganda shillings to develop it to an acceptable international standards. And definitely we still need the resources to be able to invest into geothermal, solar, wind, and hydro, among the other resources in the energy mix. And certainly the aspects of technology. We need to be able to finalize assessment of the technology, assessment for all the different sectors, and see how we are supported to ensure that we have the right technology to be able to develop these renewable energy resources. And certainly in terms of capacity, yes, we need money to build our capacity to be able to implement the technology, but also to do the maintenance going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Robert Bakika would like to intervene here and also complement what has been said before. Can we put him live?
Thank you very much, Donna. I'm glad to join you from Kampala. I'm sorry, at first my network jumped off. I just want to join on what my colleague has highlighted, and that is Paro. Just to throw more light is in the draft NDC, we are looking at reducing around the 24.2%, which is still a draft target from a target of 2016, which Honorable Songa has highlighted. And in terms of renewable energies, I'm happy to note that there are interventions which are, for example, the construction of the mini grids based on renewable energies. And we are still running mitigation potential assessments, and we see that within a period of 1 to 1.6 million metric tons can be reduced if we make more investments within the energy sector. Yeah, over to you.
Facilitator of the NDC partnership at the Climate Change Department of the Ministry of Water and Environment. So great that he was able to join in the end. Vian, we heard a lot about the need for coordination, but also the need for collaboration. So I was wondering if you want to say a few words on the project you are implementing together with WWF Uganda, which is aiming to really build a multi-actor partnership platform for exchange to increase ownership.
Thank you. When we talk about the multi-actor partnership for 100% renewable energy transition for Uganda, it is very important at this particular time because Uganda is right now at around 45 million people. What that means is that this platform brings in a unique advantage where we are looking at having one voice that is surely focused on the transition. What does it mean for Uganda to transition to 100% renewable energy for these, for the 45 million Ugandans? And what this means is that how do they eat? How do they light? How do they meet their daily energy needs? What are their, when we do scenario mapping and modeling, what our productive energy needs, what our domestic energy needs. So this multi-actor partnership platform is driving us towards having one voice as a people and as a nation. And that's why being at COP here is very, very important, that this MAP platform will translate the discussions that happen at this level to national level, but much more importantly for the communities that we represent, that the reason we are here. So really the platform brings in the idea of one voice in regards to the transition of Uganda's renewable energy agenda. But much more importantly, in addition to having one voice as a people and as stakeholders, the capacity building component in regards to the transition to renewable energy. This platform will be able to inform and enhance capacity building, and here we are meaning strengthening public-private partnerships, we are meaning technology transfer, we are talking about standards, we are talking about access. But also the platform will enhance advocacy and consistent awareness raising in regards to energy access. How do we ensure that the service providers are well informed, they are united and they're working together, but also on the demand side, but also people to be aware of the products that they need in regards to renewables in terms of usability, maintenance, but also access. And this platform will also enhance resource mobilization because we will be having one voice. We understand as a map and as a country where we are going, where we are at, and where we are coming from. And that will be important for us to be able now to say, for us to be able to transition to 100% renewable energy, maybe by 2050, this is what it is going to cost us. So where are the resources, where is the money going to come from? Now, because of what I said in number one, having one voice, what this means is that resource mobilization, things to do with fundraising and finance, will be dealt with by this MAP platform. But also to add in the issue of livelihood improvement. At the end of the day, when we are talking about the renewable energy transition, we want to see along the value chain of the renewable energy transition agenda, how our lives and livelihoods being improved. How many jobs are being created for this, in this case, in terms of green jobs? How are we going to improve the quality of life of the communities? And that is very, 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 very important. So, and then, very importantly, as we discuss the renewable energy transition agenda, focusing on sustainable natural resource management. Because currently Uganda is losing its forestry cover at a very, very high rate. And we are talking about investment in the oil and gas sector. We are talking about these various investments in Uganda. What does it mean in regards to ensuring that the natural resources that we are depending on currently are exploited sustainably for ourselves, but also for our children? That we do not forget that we are utilizing these natural resources, but also our children must find these lakes, must utilize the forests, and it is important how, for example, what my colleague had said that the biggest energy source for Ugandans is biomass. So how are we ensuring that biomass is sustainable, that our households are meeting their energy needs on a daily basis sustainably, accessing improved cook stoves, wide scale, communal tree planting and growing, that we are not talking about tree planting, but we are talking about tree growing and woodlot establishment, okay? So that is very, very important. So this platform will add value and discussions in regards to having one voice in regards to the energy sector, capacity building, advocacy and awareness raising, resource mobilization, and livelihood improvement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vian. That sounds excellent. And I think it actually touches pretty much upon what has been said by your colleagues before, that we really need to pull on the same side of things to get to a joint solution, how fossil fuels can be kept in the ground without losing any economic monetary gains, how to limit global warming to 1.5, and how to stop deforestation and advance sustainable cooking. So I wish you best of luck with the project, of course. And with that, I would like to open the floor for questions. Also, the people joining on Zoom, if you have any questions, please feel free to type. My colleague will read them out loud. But we have a question in the back.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'm called Simon Werdong, the Conservation Director at WWF Uganda. And I've been following this project. And from my side, I think I want to thank our partner BMZ and the other civil society and government of Uganda for putting in place an appropriate policy environment for renewable energy to be promoted, because it used not to be there. So I think that is some plus that comes with the leadership of Honorable here for that. I want to talk about two things in brief, in addition to what my colleagues have said. And one of them is the need for public-private partnerships, because this is what has made this possible. This project is supported with another one that is financed by EU that has put in place 6 mini-grids. And I'm getting information from colleagues from Kampala, and they're telling me each one of them is around, the total cost for putting those mini-grids were $2 million. So if you divide that, is around maybe 300,000. And it is, let me talk about what it is going to do. These mini-grids are going to power 1,000 businesses and over 1,500 homes in hard-to-reach areas. The main grid that my colleague Caro has been talking about, has not reached there. And even it is estimated in the next 10 to 20 years, the main grid will not reach those areas, meaning those people are continuing in poverty, energy poverty, and the lack of business opportunities. But when we take their mini-grids and we power their businesses, they improve their livelihood, they improve their resilience. They now take time to think about going to cut down the forest. They now take time to think about going to poach animals, and in that case, doing what we call participating in sustainable environment management. I want to make my last point, and that is, with your support and with the collaboration that we are having, we need to begin thinking of bankable nature solutions. And that is what, as a country office, WWF Uganda, we are doing together with our partners, and we really appreciate, such that nature must be bankable. And how to make this possible is where we are now looking for partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Indeed, bankable projects are an issue coming from all the sectors. And I think I saw Lawrence actually put down some notes, so we also will put that into the multi-actor partnership, of course, the issue of PPPs. So maybe we can go to the next question.
Yeah, thank you. And for the presenters, I wanted you to look outside our own context, because we have got the thrust of the Chinese who are exploiting our resources, and the demand is so huge, and this is having a serious impact on our environment. So I don't know why in your analysis you are leaving out these external forces that come to exploit our resources and leave us in a bad shape.
Thank you very much. Does anybody of the speakers want to respond to either?
Thank you. I will start with the Easterners. Most African countries are moving to the east than to the west or to the north. There are particular reasons for that. We have just been in the G20 and it has just ended. Those issues came out clearly. Why is China everywhere in Africa? China is in Africa because most African societies find it easier to get resources from China. Moreover, the resources are high interest loans, but you have no option but to go to China because the Exim Bank is there to give you the loan quickly with limited condition. But the problem with it, it is high interest loans. They have tried with the other parts of the world, but in most cases the condition require you to be a formal. But most African societies are informal. Even if they want to do some tree planting, they are informal sector. The bureaucracy, the procedure, the requirements to access that fund is very, very difficult. So now what do we do in this case? We have to address the challenges that made African countries to run to China. If we address those ones, definitely we shall be able to first bring maybe resources from elsewhere other than China. But otherwise, what China is doing Africa is going to leave Africa in a very big debt burden. But Africa has no solution to that. I wanted to react on that one. The issue of mini grids, yes, that is okay, but we don't want to build a power plant and then maybe hydropower plant just for lighting. We need strong electricity that is reliable, that is cheap also for the population, so that we shall move towards the industrial power. We need industrial power. For lighting, we can use solar and other sources, but hydropower should go for industrial development. But the good thing, the government has picked interest in this. That's why we have industrial parks everywhere that can consume maybe the estimated, if we finish Karuma, the 2,000 megawatts or more. Like Karo is talking about 3,500 megawatts. So we need industrial power, and we need to start with this industrial park so that they can consume. But for lighting, we can use other sources. And another thing which is very important, we need to address mortality. When people are not healthy, you cannot talk about conservation. You cannot talk about addressing climate change. And there is high rate of mortality, especially for mothers and children under 5 in Uganda. Not only in Uganda, in most developing countries. And the factors that are killing them, or the issues, are only 5. Issues to do with water, sanitation, hygiene, nutrition, and energy for cooking and lighting. Most mothers are cooking in poorly ventilated kitchen with their babies 3 months old on the back. There's too much indoor air pollution, which is causing problem to these mothers and their children. At night, they need lights. They are again lighting using kerosene. That is another indoor air pollution. But why can't development partners, civil society, government, come in and give at least solar lamps for these mothers so that at night they would avoid that indoor air pollution? So we need practical solution so that if we can address mortality, that will help us a lot. At the end, you find the little money they got from drought-stricken agriculture is spent all on medical bills. And moreover, 80% of the people who are doing smallholder farming in Uganda are actually women. So now, if a kid is sick and they're in the hospital, what happens to the economy? These are issues practically we need to address so that we can have a healthy economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Personally, I find it very interesting that there is a discrepancy between high interest rates and bureaucracy, and that Uganda would actually opt for the high interest rates rather than the very bureaucratic procedures of some countries. So I think that's something our international colleagues can definitely take home with them. And does anybody else from the panel want to respond? If Caroline?
I think in terms of the investment with the Chinese partners, I think we need to emphasize the aspects of green development. And it is good that now the government is embracing the sustainable procurement policy. And I would want to believe that is the way for us to go. But certainly on the aspects of the mini grids, I think our challenge has been that the distribution network for the mini grids has been a challenge. And I think this is where we need more partners to come in to help us to ensure that we actually have the distribution network for the mini grids such that it can also be used for industrialization purposes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ibrahim.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. On the issue of the Chinese, one of the issues that we need to tackle as a country is to increase compliance to our state legislation, because as a country, we have set a number of laws which are meant to protect our natural resources. And if we are able to increase the enforcement of these laws and legislation, it will help us to have sustainable development so that we're able to balance development with environmental conservation as well as livelihoods of other people. On the issue of mini grids, we believe that mini grids have a key role to play as an energy solution, because not all locations in Uganda will actually be reached by the grid because of either terrain issues, but also we need to appreciate that a number of consumers are looking at having energy solutions that can be supported based on their localities. We incur a lot of investments as a country when we have power moving across long distances. And if we're able to allow power sources at sources and then be able to feed into the mini grids, it will be a good solution for us as a country.
Thank you very much. And I think we have one last virtual question.
Yes, thank you. So Hope Okute asked, what is Uganda doing to attract private investors to complete access and affordable energy, especially for cooking?
I would like whoever wants to reply to keep their replies short, because we need to wrap up in time. So who wants to reply?
So government has been really helpful in trying to support a lot of private sector investment. One of the things that they have done is to put incentives. For example, they have removed taxes from some of the clean cooking technologies that we have in the country. Currently, LPG has been waived from taxation. And also we have a number of solar products, because now Uganda is promoting solar energy for cooking. A number of solar products in the country are actually exempted from paying VAT. So this also helps a lot of reducing the energy costs that these private sector companies incur in reaching out to these different communities where energy challenges are occurring.
I think the ministry has an arm called Uganda Credit Capitalization Company, and this is really focusing on working with the private sector. Through this, we are able to give resources to the private sector to do investments into the renewable energy space. And we are certainly improving on our collaboration with the private sector through giving them subsidies to be able to do investment in the renewable energy space. And you certainly realize that in terms of the hydropower plants also, we are getting into the involvement where we get an investor to build and operate the hydropower plants to improve on our private sector engagement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think with that, I would like to hand over to Dr. Martin Kipping, Head of the Climate Policy Unit at the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, without whom the 100 Remap project would not have been possible. So here you go for the closing remarks.
Thanks for that. Shall I remain standing, or take the freedom to take your seat? Thanks so much, colleagues, and really honored to be at this event. Was intrigued really to listen to you and to learn from your experience in Uganda. Pretty amazing what you have been doing. And Lawrence, on the climate law, it actually reminded me of our recent experience also in Germany on our climate law, which if you know, but our constitutional court recently came to the conclusion that our original climate law was not yet up to the task, not constitutional. So this year we had to revise it, strengthen it, increase the 2030 mitigation target, and accelerate the climate neutrality target to 2045. But interestingly, our constitutional court also said that climate action also implies an international responsibility. Basically reinforcing also our mandate, our task to engage in international climate action. Well, we are here to precisely do that, to partner with colleagues like you in advancing the international agenda. And I had the pleasure to be present at the very beginning of the global NDC partnership, and I still recall that Uganda used to be one of the front-runner countries, one of the first countries, I think, putting together a partnership plan. So this is really heartening to see also from what you are telling us, that this is bearing fruit now with specific plans and actions. I think particularly valuable, and that's what you're supporting through the project, is that participatory approach, right? That multi-stakeholder approach that's frequently needed to, first of all, bring in the collective knowledge, but also build the legitimacy and acceptance of courageous climate action. Because this is, well, I guess, like in Germany, also in Uganda, not easy to get all stakeholders on board. There are interests that are affected by climate action, trade-offs that have to be managed, and you mentioned some of these. So great that you're following that line. I think that can probably also inform other examples. I think France, for instance, is experimenting with citizen councils. We in Germany had a multi-stakeholder commission on our coal exit, right? But that also indicates that the participatory approach alone is not sufficient for coming to sufficiently ambitious action. Currently there are coalition negotiations taking place in Germany. You know, we had recently elections. We're in the process of forming a new government, and they're currently discussing if we don't even have to accelerate the coal exit date, which was for the latest in 38, according to the results of that commission. So that might be taken forward to 2030. Also interesting to hear about the modeling work, 100% renewables. I think it's really important to, besides the overarching targets we all committed to, the 1.5 in Paris, to also show specifically how that can be translated into practical action, and how that can actually be done when the rubber hits the road, be it in Uganda or in Germany. Let me maybe come to what we as BMZ, so the German Development Cooperation Ministry, is doing to support the agenda, the climate agenda, the transformation towards climate neutrality and resilience. We have recently gone through, or rather are still going through, a comprehensive reform process, BMZ 2030 it's called. The ministry has decided to focus on 5 core areas, and among the 2 first core area strategies we have finished is our climate and energy strategy, on which my division actually leads. And one key area, as the name indicates, indeed, is the energy transformation. Our leitmotif is so-called Vision 100, meaning that we'd like to support our partner countries to ensure access to modern electricity to 100% of the population by 2030, only by expanding renewable energy sources, and to assist our partners in completely decarbonizing their energy sectors by 2050. So ambitious targets, and you rightly pointed out, it's important to bring both sides together. The developments, socio-economic development agenda, SDG 7, and the decarbonization agenda. The IEA, the International Energy Agency, recently put out forcefully the physics and the mathematics behind, which basically mean that we cannot afford to open up new fossil energy resources beyond those that are being exploited already. That's tough, that's hard, and we need to find solutions that for those who are sitting on these fossil resources, that they can do without and still accelerate their socioeconomic development. And indeed, the COVID pandemic, as tragic as it is, can also open up opportunities in the recovery, right? If we take the opportunity not to rebuild the economies of the past, go back to the status quo ante, but rather recover forward, as we call it, and engage in the green recovery. And that's what we like to support our partners with. Only last year we started the so-called Green Recovery Initiative with the World Bank, which was also presented yesterday, which seeks to support countries in getting, in particular, the framework conditions right. The regulatory environment, the emission pricing systems, getting rid or phasing out fossil fuel subsidies in line with just transition and related activities. We are with you. We are impressed by your progress. And yeah, we hope that together we can live up to our collective responsibility to keep 1.5 alive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kipping. And with that, I would actually like to conclude. So thank you again very much. I think it was very interesting to see some of the similarities, but also learn from the experience from Germany. Thank you very much to the speakers, online and offline, and sharing the experiences. I'm sure that my colleagues Vian and Ibrahim took note of all the insights you gave. And we are hoping to further fruitful cooperation in the 100 Remap project with all of you. Also, thank you to the audience for being here and listening. And I hope you can enjoy COP further. And with that, thank you very much.